Hey, CRYO. You editing videos right now?
Oh yeah, sure. That's exactly what I'm doing.
Oh, that's good to hear. 'Cause you know it's been some time since your last video, right?
What do you mean by that? It's not even 2 weeks since last. Wait a minute, what the f?
Hi everyone, this is CRYO, and today I have a bit of a different video. This is a topic I've discussed with and have seen being discussed on streams, and I noticed it's not nearly as common on YouTube as it should be. At most, I've seen Chase and G9 doing videos on it, and that's it. And with how important this info is for all you invaders out there still handling this horrible game, it's probably a good thing to have my own spin on what I like to call menu optimization. Though, for the sake of making this video easier to find, I'll be naming this topic Item Management in the title. But just so we're clear, I'm not just talking about what items, weapons, and armor should always be available in an invader's inventory. I'll also be talking about how you should arrange them in your quick selection. But you all should know that my own kind of menu optimization is entirely centered around the hard swapping technique, which means going to your menu as fast as possible to switch your currently equipped gear to the one better suited for the moment. This is the opposite of soft swapping, which is just switching the weapons in your active hand slots, which is still useful in certain situations, but isn't something I'll be bringing up here. And so, the remainder of this video is based entirely around the idea that you A. have all the items you could ever possibly want in your inventory, and B. are willing to swap them if you think your current matchup is suboptimal. Now, let's get some things out of the way before we actually begin. 1. I'm kinda trash at this game.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine.
Well, it's not like I have no clue what I'm doing. I obviously know how to roll catch and set up parry, but when I compare myself to the top players out there like Chase, G9, or Amish, I honestly can't help feeling a little... But listen to Mr. Vermilion for a second.
Confirm something for me. Amish once said that if you have a gold medal in the arena, you're entitled to be called good. Would you agree? I would agree to an extent. Good as in, like, good enough to fight, you know, and win some, probably.
So for the sake of my own self-esteem, I'll use that metric and consider my gold medal a token of being good. So even if you're not a pro like the guys I mentioned before, and you sit more along the lines of a good player like myself, you will be able to make use of the information in this video. 2. There's not a single right answer for how to optimize your menu, since that depends heavily on your specific playstyle. Thus, it would be erroneous of me to claim I have the solution to your awful KD ratio in this game. What I can do here is show you my own style of menu optimization and the reasons as to why that's my preference. From here on, you can trail your own course to become a more resourceful invader, or just follow mine if it suits you. 3. This topic ties neatly into what I like to call the Invader Toolbox, because yes, there are tools your build needs to answer specific scenarios more easily. These make it so you don't have to always rely on pure skill to win an invasion, which is perfect for trash-ass players like myself. 4. This video is mostly directed to invaders. Now, most people that host and gank in this game don't do nearly enough research or click on videos like these, but if you want to use what I show here to improve your ganking efficiency, I mean, go ahead, not like I can stop you. And 5, since I'm going to be offering information for people that don't know any better, I will have to explain a bunch of stuff that you pros already know. So if I sound like a condescending teacher, please have some patience on the noobs and cut me some slack. Alright, now that all of that is out of the way, let's begin with the largest category first. Weapons. What I typically do with my weapons is to use the regular weapon class sorting order, to organize as many of them in the horizontal lines as I can. By this I mean I try to have a dagger line, a straight sword line, a great sword line, and so on. This is so that when I go into my menu to switch weapons, I'll have to waste as little time as possible searching for the specific weapon I'm looking for. I should mention I try to keep my main weapon for each class in the leftmost slot, so that when I go into the menu looking for it, I just need to look at one column to find it ASAP. That said, I also try to have as many weapons as my build allows, and that means, for instance, I can't have a dagger line in my dexterity build, because there's way too many daggers that work well with this build, which creates a dagger block that I had to deal with. But yeah, if you want to maximize your efficiency, you should put only 5 daggers in your dagger line. It's probably a better choice. With that said, let's begin by mentioning my main slot weapons, going by weapon classes. You yourself will rarely stray from these, and they're the weapons I recommend if you need to ease yourself into the hard swapping skill set. Though I'm not just including high level builds here, I'm also thinking about early, mid, and late game PvP, so don't expect everything I include here to be available to every build. So let's begin. You will need the Fire Dagger for low weight and high damage riposting after a parry. Just remember to infuse it with Chaos for dark builds. The Longsword or the Lothric Knight Sword for tackling basically any PvP situation. The Claymore for quick and reliable access to high damage, combos, and hyper armor on the fly. The Zweihander, for steamrolling several people at once. There are better options, but this one works in practically every build. The Pontiff Knight Curved Sword, for pressuring people into absolute horror with Roll Catch Hell. The Demon Scar, for quick access to meleeed Pyromancy True combos. The Exile Greatsword, for quick access to one-handed hyper armor. The Washing Pole, for the second best running attacks in the game, in my opinion. The Rapier, or the S-Talk, for easier backstab sucks. The Wing Knight Twin Axis, to deal with massive lag spikes, though not every laggy encounter. The Dragon Slayer Great Axe, to snap the Falling Bolt weapon out right in people's faces with hyper armor. The Mace, for quick access to Perseverance and high damage to heavy armor. The Great Club, for the lightest maximum hyper armor option in the game. The Chestus, for quick access to Perseverance and combo starting. The 4-Prong Plow, for the actual best running attacks in the game. Gundir's Halberd, for the infamous Gundir switch to delete someone after a backstab. And finally, the Great Corvian Scythe, for the best shield piercing in the game, and you can also infuse this one with blood in case you're not running a dexterity or elemental build. These are the weapons that, in my humble opinion, need to be in your leftmost slot column of your inventory. Now, other people, like my brother, would say that you need to get anything you need and then fiddle with the available inventory storing options to figure out what facilitates your swapping game the best. And he's not wrong. Like I said, look at what I'm doing to figure out what works best for you. Again, what I'm showing here is my own preference for menu optimization. Anyway, now let's talk about the tools I think you need to have in all the other slots. They don't necessarily need to be in your specific weapon line, like the Bastard Sword that I keep in my Straight Sword line here, but having them at all is a big tip of the scale in your favor. These are the Bloodbend's Knife, for pressuring people that never let go of their 100% physical reduction shields, the Poison Rotting Grew Dagger, for inflicting poison to not give your target a minute to breathe. Addendum, poison isn't meant to be used as an execution tool, but a pressure tool. You must keep attacking while the other guy is scrambling to reach his Estus or Poison Moss. It's almost always an added benefit in the long run, even in meta level, to shut down the usefulness of Tears of Denial. The Corvian Great Knife, for roll catching, chasing, and even general combat. The Murky Hand Scythe, mostly because of its hit stun, high damage, and quick step weapon art set that basically counters every other weapon in the game. The Short Sword, in case you need the lightest straight sword that can still dish out proper damage. The Earthil Straight Sword, to dish out high damage and pressure people with Frostbite. The Bastard Sword, for low cost access to stomp launching, perfect for those Pharaoh fidget spinners. The Hollow Slayer, for easy access to its unstoppable R1 chain hyper armor. The Black Knight Sword, for access to its Perseverance / wide swings / high damage set. The Moonlight Greatsword, for nasty damage and reach. The Onyx Blade, for the longest reaching greatsword in the game. The Astora Greatsword, for hyper armor, catastrophic damage, and the charge weapon art to catch runners and tank hits. The Pharaoh Greatsword, for some of the most horrifying combos and hitboxes when used by someone with an actual brain. The Cathedral Knight Greatsword, for the absurd two-handed R1 to R2 true combo, plus the vertical moveset. The Lothric Knight Greatsword, for the nuclear damage when this is buffed with gold resins. The Scimitar, for the fast curved sword moveset with a non-quality build. The Sellsword Twin Blades, for when a surprise combo opportunity presents itself. The Follower Saber, for a single weapon art press to crack open any shield. The Kartos Curved Sword, for a fast and reliable one-handed weapon that's not a straight sword. The Storm Curved Sword, for the same reason as the Kartos, but with an added wind hitbox on the weapon art that can stun light weapons out of their combos. The Rotten Grew Curved Sword, for the best poisoning / direct combat option in the game. The Kartos Curved Greatsword or the Murakumo, for one-handed hyper armor on high dexterity builds. The Bloodlust for swapping the Bloodlust weapon art into several weapons. The Hand Axe for a fantastic offhand or even main hand weapon. The Man Serpent Hatchet for the longest infusible axe moveset in the game. The Millwood Battle Axe for an improvised wake up kill switch for elemental and dexterity builds. The Dragon Slayer's Axe for low level builds to do damage. The Great Machete or Yorm's Great Machete for some of the best offhand options. The Black Knight Great Axe for that bonkers riposte damage or just general fighting. Also, it has a dirty R1 to R2 combo, though it's kinda hard to pull off. The War Pick for the same moveset as the Mace, only with more range and no perseverance. The Reinforced Club for a great offhand weapon for high stagger. The Hazel Pick for the infamous R1 to Soul Greatsword / Old Moonlight combo. The Spiked Mace for one of the most damaging true combos in the game. Force Grey Hammer for some of the most efficient frost biting in the game. The Great Wooden Hammer for a decent hyper armor option for low strength builds. Also, it does wonders when infused with poison. Leto's Grey Hammer for snapping the weapon out of people's faces. The Rotten Groove Spear for pressuring people to run away forever. The Tailbone Spear for ambushing people from behind walls, and you don't even need skilling for that. The Lothric Knight Long Spear for better poison in the offhand. The Lothric War Banner for buffing a one-handed weapon's damage or just using it as a main hand weapon. Frida's Great Scythe for a powerful direct combat scythe. The Witch's Locks for a weapon art with a very quick startup. The Short Bow for the occasional bow glitch. The Millwood Greatbow for long range pressure. The Light Crossbow or the Arbalest for medium range pressure. The Evelyn for killing hackers. The Repeating Crossbow for the Millwood Autocannon. And finally, your chosen Pyromancy Flame, Staff, Catalyst, Talisman or Chime for casting spells if you got any. Also, you should always keep a Pyromancer's Parting Flame on hand to refill your assets in case the battle is particularly sweaty. Now, if you've noticed, I've been suggesting that you also keep glitch-related gear in your arsenal to improve your invasion efficiency. And there's always a discussion to be had as to whether one should or should not use glitches in PvP. So, very quickly, I'll throw my 2 cents here. Disregarding any matter of ethics in the discussion, there are 2 ways in which glitches will affect you in invasions, regardless of your feelings about them. 1. The tryhard gankers will stack everything in their favor, sometimes including glitches. And when they do, and you show up handicapped, you may just consider the invasion a bust. So keeping the option available for these scenarios is basically mandatory as far as I understand. 2. If you run into a non-tryhard gank or solo host, consider the impact that abusing glitches will have on an already dwindling player base. You'd prefer that your victim comes back to the game so you can invade them again, right? So overwhelming that person with what are clearly unintended game mechanics will only scare them off and hurt your goals as an invader. Whether we like it or not, glitches exist and we need to adapt. And this is my own way of handling things. You may have your own, but if you didn't until now, I hope I can at least give you a mindset you may want to follow or avoid. We good? Great, moving on. Shields are another important part of your arsenal. Not only to block, not only to parry, but to pull off both at the right moment. And for them I have a similar setup to that of weapons. Here's my take on it. I first keep 3 target shields, uninfused, simple and blast, for situations that I might need a longer parry window, and then I fill the other 2 slots with 2 small leather shields which have the same extended parry window. Next, I'll have 3 iron round shields, same infusions as before, for just general blocking and parrying since this is my go-to shield, and fill the other 2 slots with Hawkwood's shield and Llewellyn's shield. After that, I'll have 3 Eastern Iron Round shields, same infusions as before, for quick access to certain weapons as weapon arts, like the Storm Curved Swords or the Follower's Sabers, and then fill the other 2 slots with the Golden Falcon shield and the Sacred Bloom shield, although I will switch the Falcons to the Dragon Head shield just because of its utility. Next I get myself 3 Knight shields, also same infusions, just in case I run into someone I need to block. And then I fill the other 2 slots with lightning infused Lothric Knight shields. And as you are aware, these have the specific job of countering lightning arrow spammers. Fun fact, you don't even need to meet the requirements of the shield to block lightning arrow. Next up, I get all the important shields that I can farm or buy, like the Crest Shield, Dragon Crest Shield, Black Knight Shield, and arguably the most important one of all, the Ethereal Oak Shield, which has 100% physical damage reduction and HP regen. Ideally, you'd want to have several copies of any weapon just to make swapping between them easier and quicker, but just like with several weapons, that's impossible without going to New Game Plus or duping with a friend, which is why I use several useless shields to fill slots that I won't be using, to push the ones that I need to their positions. That is, unfortunately, also impossible with these final specialized shields. These 5 ones here are all cramped together like the Infinity Stones, and I just have to internalize that there's a sack of shields at the bottom that are going to be hard to sort through at a moment's notice. Thankfully, I don't tend to block much outside of the arena, and even there, I rarely ever switch shields at all. Next up, let's cover armor. And there is not much that I recommend you keep. First, you need a set of thorns, and that's because this set deals damage every time you roll into someone. It's great for post-tier skills. It's also especially useful for countering ladder cheesers, as pointed out by the illustrious Mr. Silly Dog. Another piece you need is the Symbol of Avarice. This headpiece serves 2 functions: increasing your souls on everything you kill, which is just good form when an overleveled phantom dies, and telling an invader where you are, because every now and then the invader gets invaded, and if you want a short fight before resuming your own invasions, getting constantly damaged by the symbol helps the other guy know where to find you so you can get it done with already. And finally, with how mechanically important poise is, you should at least have the best pieces for a good poise to weight ratio in your inventory. These sets include Alvas, Drank, Morns, Exile, Outrider, Black Iron, Faram, Firelink, Sellsword, Cathedral, Gundyrs, Shadow, Havels, Dancers, Ring Knight, Iron Dragon Slayer, and Black Knight set. Have these to swap them around for quick use and you're golden. I should also mention the Crown of Dusk and Blindfold Mask, which increase magic and dark damage respectively, and are useful in every caster's arsenal. Though I personally avoid these like the plague, it is good form to equip them and shoot a single spell as an ambush, only to switch back to your actual helm for direct combat. And that's it for armor, just carry these and your chosen fashion if that matters to you, and you're done. Rings are also important to mention, and let's just get one thing out of the way for this section. There's a difference between a build ring and a swappable ring. Some rings make your build waste less points, which makes it so you can't always unequip them, if ever. And other rings offer very situational bonuses that are much more effective if equipped and unequipped mid-battle, which is why I, and many other players, leave the very first ring slot open for a swappable ring, while practically never touching the other 3 slots, as these are relegated for fixed options. If you want to, you can even keep the first 2 ring slots for swappables and still have a very viable build, in my humble opinion. And as you all know, you can't stack 2 duplicate rings even if there are +1 or +2 versions of themselves. So we need to choose entirely different rings with bonuses that synergize together, or rings with bonuses that fulfill a single function very well. Typically, the rings that people never take off are any combination of 2 or 3 of the following items. The Ring of Favor +3, which gives you 6% more health, 12% more stamina, and 8% more equip load, and is found at the very end of the Drag Heap in the Ring City DLC. These are indeed very minor bonuses, which is why this thing is typically paired with other rings. The Prisoner's Chain, which gives you 5 points in Vigor, 5 in Endurance, and 5 in Vitality, and is acquired by trading Champion Gundyr's Soul with Ludleth. This is very useful in low-level builds, and when paired with the Ring of Favor +3, you'll be able to save lots of points for other things. The Havel's Ring +3, which gives you 19% more equip load, and is found in Silver Knight Ladle's Cliffside in the Ring City. Pairing this with both the Chain and the Favor +3 allows you to make even a mid-game strength build with points to spare. The Life Ring +3, which gives you 10% more health, but is sadly only acquired in New Game +2. When paired with the Chain and the Favor +3, this gives you enough health at low level to get as close as one can to a true tank build in this game. Addendum. One should keep in mind that the higher you go in levels, the less and less useful the Prisoner's Chain gets, because its bonuses are based on stats. Between the diminishing returns on stats, the ring's absorption penalty, and the overall bonkers damage that everyone does at high levels, it makes more sense to get something that affects your final values directly instead of levels when you reach the late game or meta level. As for the swapping rings, the following are the ones I see used most often. The Hornet Ring, which makes your critical attacks do 30% more damage, and is found in the Untainted Graves after defeating the Abyss Watchers. In lower levels you get better returns from this by riposting/backstabbing people with daggers, since these weapons do lots of critical damage naturally. But in high levels, basically everything does huge damage anyway, so keeping the ring on for most of the time is not wrong. Keep in mind that this ring is heavy, so your vitality needs to account for that. The Wolf ring plus 3, which gives you 9 more poise and is found by defeating Alva, Seeker of the Spurned, in the Ring City. Poise is a tricky mechanic to explain entirely, but to simplify, the more of it you have, the heavier is the attack that you can go through with hyper armor attacks of your own. Poise does suffer from diminishing returns the more you stack it, but the ring always gives you a decent boost either way. The stat rings, as I like to call them, which are the Knight's Ring, found in the Dragon Barracks, the Hunter's and Scholar's Ring, found in the Grand Archives, and the Priestess Ring, bought from the Shrine Handmaiden and the Untethered Graves. These give you 5 points in Strength, Dexterity, Intelligence, and Faith respectively. I mostly use them to bypass stat requirements on the most taxing weapons or spells, but you could reasonably consider these fixed rings to make your build work. It's also common practice to keep Faith at 10, swap to the Priestess Ring, cast Tears of Denial, and then swap the ring for something else before the invasion starts proper. Lloyd's Sword Ring and Shield Ring, which respectively give you 10% more damage and absorption when you're full health, and are found in the Cathedral of the Deep and Body Firelink Shrine respectively. Naturally, the moment you get hit by anything, these rings are no longer effective, so the correct approach is to have them equipped while you still haven't taken damage yet, and switch them to another ring once the first trade has taken place. Also, if you see someone with a visual effect for either of these rings, you can cancel them relatively easy by landing a throwing knife or Church Guardian Shiv on them. The Silver Cat Ring, which cancels all damage you take from any non-lethal fall, and is acquired by progressing Sirius's questline until Erythril the Boreal Valley. Swapping to this ring is useful in almost any fallen scenario, since several areas in Dark Souls 3 allow for plunging attacks if you position yourself properly. What I do is try to predict where my opponent might be going, and if I notice there's a big drop coming up, I'll equip the ring in advance. However, what the top tier players do is equip the ring mid-fucking falling, which obviously requires a masterful grasp of the game's menu, but is far more efficient. The Red Tearstone Ring, which increases your overall damage when your health is below 20% and is located in Lothar Castle just before the Dragon's Lair armor. This effect stacks with the Morion Blade, which can be kept in your offhand, while the main hand holds the weapon you actually do damage with. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is what's known as a Hyper Mode setup. It can be used to dish out one-shot damage, but you will always die in one hit as well. Also keep in mind this is one of the heaviest rings in the game, and it might actually push you into fat rolling range. The Obscuring Ring, which makes you invisible to anyone beyond a large enough distance, and is acquired by offering 10 Pale Tongues to Rosaria. This is invaluable if you want to escape and break line of sight, and mandatory if you intend to shoot projectiles at your target, like bombs or great arrows, since it hides the animation that telegraphs the projectile's ETA. Keep in mind that certain buffs that appear on your body, like Green Blossom Stamina Regen, Lloyd's Rings, and Tears of Denial, can still be seen despite your model not appearing, which is why I also suggest that you pair this ring with the Slumbering Dragoncrest Ring, which not only deletes most of the sound you would make by walking, but also hides these visual effects. The Untrue Dark Ring and the Untrue White Ring, which respectively switch your phantom colors to that of a host, which is just uncolored, and White Phantom, which is obviously useless if you're a phantom already. The White Ring is mostly employed so that hosts mistake you for a friendly phantom for a second or two. They can still lock onto you and see your red username / character name, and they remember who they summoned, so you gotta make use of the 1 or 2 seconds in which your target feels safe smartly. And the Dark Ring mostly works in dark areas to hide your red coloring and set up an environmental ambush. Both rings are sold by Yuri of Londor. The Estus Ring, which increases the amount of health you get from an Estus Flask by 20% in the Locked Tower and Firelink Shrine. This can be invaluable to increasing your long-term survivability, but my advice is that you train yourself to back away when you've taken too much damage, find a safe position to switch to the ring before drinking the Estus, just like with the Silver Cat Ring, and then consume the Estus. The Sun Princess Ring, which gives you a 2 HP per second regen effect and is found above Aldrich's boss room in Anor Londo. Now, obviously this is minuscule and not meant as a replacement for life gems from Dark Souls 2, but on the long run, this can easily save up on a few of your Estus Flasks. And considering you're already cut down to half your Estus count as a Phantom already, anything that can save that is welcome. Typically you want to resort to the ring after a long struggle to make sure you can't die to throwing knife so easily. The Sage Ring Plus 2, which maximizes your casting speed, but is sadly only found in New Game Plus. Of course, wasting less time standing around doing the Harry Potter is useful, but the main use for this is to make it so that certain weapons can combo into certain spells, for some of the most devastating sequences in the game. Keep in mind that if you have 40 dexterity, your casting speed is already maximized, so if you're running a hybrid build, you can skip the ring. And finally, the Night Slayer's Ring, which increases the amount of stamina damage a shielded target takes, allowing for easier guard breaks, and is dropped by Night Slayer Tsorig, who invades you in the Catacombs of Karthus. It's hard to find players blocking in meta, so this ring won't be so useful most of the time. But in the off chance you find one of those geniuses that hold their shields up and backpedal forever, this ring takes a massive dump on their faces. The best way to guard break attacks, by the way, is to pair this ring with guard break attacks, like the Stance R1 weapon art in Stray Swords and Great Swords, or the follower Saber's Prying Wedge weapon art. Up next, we have to take care of your item hotbar. And there's a lot of things to cover here. A massive truckload of items in this game can be accessed with the square button. and we need to have a properly sorted and curated pouch to suit your needs. These 12 slots need to cover different situations and answer different problems. And after hundreds, if not thousands of invaders, I've come up with this. This is what I use to maximize my invasion efficiency. Again, I can't promise this loadout will work for every one of you, but it should provide at least a good starting point. So let's get it over with. First slot, Estus Flask, for obvious reasons. You can get comboed rather easily in this game, so having a heal button at the ready is paramount, and even the game suggested it this way. Also, do train yourself to hold down the arrow pad to come back to the Estus immediately after taking damage. It'll save you quite a bit of time. Second slot, Green Blossoms, since this provides the same stamina regen buff as a base Chloranthy ring. Now, a measly +5 stamina regen isn't suddenly going to turn into Usain Bolt, but it stays active for a long time, and you should get used to applying it regularly during invasions. Third slot, Gold Pine Bundle, because the animation for this is extremely quick and it even has a running version and a combo version, that being when you use it directly after an attack. This is an item that's meant to be at your beck and call at all times. Fourth slot, Charcoal Pine Bundle, due to the same reason as the previous item, but you'll mostly use this when the auto runs out. High fire absorption is more common than high lightning absorption, so this is a less useful damage buff, but it's a significant one still. Fifth slot, Under 100 Charm, so that you can toss this at your leisure when you see someone on the verge of death. Combining this with a poison build-up weapon is pretty nasty, as most people don't keep the healing moss on hand. Sixth slot, Church Guardian Shiv, since it can cancel Lord's Rings easier and finish off players that just lost Tears of Denial. It does cost FP to cast, but I do have a fair bit of tracking that can make a difference in a hectic scenario. Seventh slot, Throwing Knives, since they can do almost everything the Shiv can do. The difference is that these don't have any tracking, but they also don't drain your FP. Eighth slot, Firebomb, so that you can keep the damage coming even from far away. Bombs in general deal both decent damage and high hit stun. You need to keep throwing these at all times to drain the opposition's Estus pool in between engagements. Ninth slot, Black Firebomb. For the same reason as the Firebomb, more bombs means less Estus for everyone that's not you. And 10th and final slot, Lightning Urn. Again, more bombs. These ones are especially nasty in Faith builds since they have high scaling and you can carry 20 of them. Again, pelting a gank with these needs to become second nature to you. And finally, you don't need to have these equipped for quick use, but you must always carry a stock of Alluring Skulls. And given how impossibly tanky most summonable NPCs in this game are, making them face somewhere else is invaluable, be it to isolate their host or just backstab them, which is the better approach. But I'm not done yet. Now I have to talk about the stuff you ought to keep in the menu bar, which is a little slower to access and thus should be relegated to items you use when you have a larger time window. We have 5 slots, and what I advise you to add to them is the following. First slot, Ashen Estus Flask, so that you can recover your FP when you have a bit of time. Naturally, this assumes you have allotted at least 2 Ashen Estus with Downdray, but that's what I advise you to do, since FP fuels your magic and weapon arts, which might run out in longer invasions. Second slot, your chosen resin-like buff, so that you can set up long-term strategies. This is only viable if your weapons allow buffs, obviously. You can choose between Gold Pine Resin and Human Pine Resin here, but if you intend to use the Drakeblood Greatsword a lot, you can also consider a Pale Pine Resin. Third slot, a chosen bug pellet, so that you can survive a specific elemental damage source better. Typically what I do is to choose the bug pellet that increases the damage I can resist the most, but having them all is preferable. I'm still working on employing that in combat, but we can't ignore the fact that this is among the few buffs that aren't nerfed in PvP. Fourth slot, 99 blooming purple moss clumps, so that you can heal both poison and toxic from those people that happen to use it, and the environmental sources of poison such as swamps and poison beast enemies. You already have a smaller health pool, so you shouldn't be losing it over time when you can have 99 of these. In fifth and final slot, the young white branch, so that you can quickly blend into the scenery and set up ambushes. Of course, an experienced player can discern weird elements from the map, but even just hiding a red coloring is greatly useful. But wait, that's not all. Obviously, most elemental builds cannot use buffs in any way, and so to replace the consumable buffs, the second best option are dual charms, just in case they run into a buff build, which can be devastating when they're on the ganker side. Also, hyper mode setups can still have buffable weapons, but they typically only need one, so they can also choose to replace something with the Dragon Torso Stone, which gives you a free damage buff at the cost of your armor and an entire stamina bar upon use. This needs to be used in the right moments, so keeping it at a finger's reach is just good practice in general. And finally, Spear the Church builds have a unique consumable available, the Ritual Spear Fragment, and its better version, the Divine Spear Fragment. This is a crucial item that can separate parties and deal serious damage to the unaware, but it's also very slow, so replacing those low resins in your menu bar with this is probably the better choice. Now let's talk spells, and as you might expect, I'm gonna have to split this into categories, but instead of just saying which are your best choices for a caster, I'm gonna give you some of the best spell setups. Just keep in mind that for the longest setups, I'm assuming a high attunement investment, so if your build can accommodate that, you need to settle for less options. For For an intelligence build, I advise you to attune Homing Crystal Soul Mass, then Crystal Soul Spear, then Grey Heavy Soul Arrow, then Deep Soul or Great Deep Soul, and then Grey Pharaon Dart. This setup allows you to use the Soul Mass to spear combo, belt people with high damage for low FP cost, and chip people with fast spells. A Faith build, in my opinion, cannot go without the following setup: Tears Denial, then Lightning Arrow, then Lightning Spear, and then Lightning Stake. This way you can start an invasion with the most useful defensive miracle in the game, have a lightning gunshot ready at all times, and have the burst damage option, though these last two practically require a talisman with Unfaltering Prayer to be even halfway useful. Pyro or Dark Caster builds should attune their spells this way: Black Serpent, then Chaos Bad Vestiges, then Black Flame, and then Grey Chaos Fire Orb. This is because, at maximum casting speed, these two can combo together, Black Flame can combo to itself and regular weapons, and Fire Orb can stay on the ground to chip people if they roll the wrong way. Now for some more creative setups. A buff build should put their corresponding spell buff in the very first slot, since their entire stat distribution is based on that spell alone and thus should be considered a priority. For Hybrid Sorcerers, that's Crystal Magic Weapon, for Hybrid Clerics, that's either Dark Moon Blade or Lightning Blade, and for Hybrid Pyromancers or Dark Casters, that's Karthus Flame Arc or Dark Weapon. Though you should note that the stat investment for a Hybrid Pyromancer is crazy high, even if you just reach the soft caps. You may as well go full physical damage and apply a Charcoal Pine bundle if your end goal is fire in any way. If you intend to become a Spear of the Church, it is highly advised that you run a Faith build so that you can add 1 or 2 healing miracles, because obviously spears cannot heal. Therefore, a Cleric that's updated for spear invasions should attune Tears, and then Grey Heal or Soothing Sunlight. Maybe add Bountiful Sunlight, but this one is kinda situational, and health regen can be more efficiently achieved with Blast Weapons and the Sun Priestess Ring. Next is what I like to call the Clutch setup. A variation of this setup is adopted by the majority of pro players as it doesn't require much investment to take full advantage of. With 18 attunement, just place Tears Denial and Force, and that's it. Or you can go even lower and stay at 14 attunement, attune Tears to save you from certain death, and you're already a pro. But Force still can, to this day, come in clutch with Unfaltering Prayer and a Cliffside. Another important setup for you to keep in mind is what I like to call the Unscaled Purge setup. In the event that you run into one of those low lives that eat dirt from a straw and summon their non-downscale level 800 friends at SL1 and its vicinities, having the Sacred Flame Pyromancy equipped, casting it with a bow glitch to cast it again with a Dark Hand is enough to completely melt theirs or their friends' health bars. This also works with other spells, but more spells means more attunement, naturally. And finally, one last setup I have for you today, the Frostbite setup. Frostbite sadly doesn't scale with anything in this game, not even luck like other status effects. It only comes from weapons that already have Frostbite, and 2 singular spells from the Ashes of Ariandel DLC, Frozen Weapon and Snap Freeze, and these 2 are all you need in this setup, for by luring the other player into the Snap Freeze cloud, and then R1ing them with a weapon that you've previously enveloped in Ice Cream, you very much guarantee a Frostbite proc. And to finish off the subject, let's talk gestures. Because yes, there are some emotes that are more important than others, and I'll explain why for each of the 7 I deemed essential. First, you need a dignified bow from Yuria, and you need it to quickly express your non-toxicity to other players. I'm not saying you shouldn't play to your absolute best in invasions, you should. What I am saying is that sometimes you might run into an acquaintance or you want to show that you're not trying to grieve people. And for those situations, you may need some way to offer a peace agreement. And among the 4 different bows in the game, this is one of the quickest to perform so that you can minimize the chances of being attacked by a trigger-happy player. But if you missed Yuria or Hazel's gestures, your best bet is the regular bow. Next is the call over, and this is a very important gesture because it creates an audible sound cue on anyone around you. This way you can draw attention to yourself so that you can communicate your next intentions ASAP. Synergy is very useful between 2 invaders, and calling your buddy over can help you tell him what your plan is. Speaking of that, I advise you to also keep point forward next to that. Since at this point most invaders can tell what and where their options are, merely showing cooperation and pointing to a place can be invaluable to tell your buddy what exactly your plan is. Say I have a buddy and I point at a group of enemies. Obviously they can't hit us, so I'm clearly conveying that I want to use mobs as a way to cover our assault on the opposing team. If you can combo this with a call over, you'll come as close as one can to an invader voice chat. After this one, you need to place the point down. Now, I'm not saying that griefing people is essential per se. What I am saying is that sometimes you will find players that get on your bad side. And if they die, you will feel an immense need to be cheeky. So just having this available at all times instead of having to rummage through your menu for it is greatly preferable. If you think I'm not going to point down at a hacker or a runner or someone that already pointed down beforehand, for these people, I keep the gesture ready. Next up is the collapse. This is an important gesture to show sympathy for someone. For instance, you can't really say that you understand the suffering someone or yourself might be experiencing with a bow, so just trust me on this one. This is as close as you can get to saying, I hear you, bro. After that, you will need curl up, and it's for a very simple reason. Taking cover and hiding. Yes, you can do that with a white tree branch, but that item has a sound and visual cue that clearly shows where you are as it's happening, while curling up in a corner is fast, reduces your model, and if you can wear the right armor set, you can blend in with the environment extremely well, as most Dark Souls players, myself included, suffer from tunnel vision after playing this game for so long. And finally, you'll want the more OP version of curl up, which is stretch out. You need this gesture for the exact same reason as before, blending in with the environment. The difference is that this one takes a longer time to be performed, but you also end up even closer to the ground than before. This can be used in all kinds of ways, like hiding above an elevator, drowning yourself, clipping into ashes, clipping into supposedly solid objects. Boy, there's a lot of clipping in this game. If you can find a place and time to do this gesture, you can basically become invisible while standing still. So if you feel like you have an opportunity to go full Metal Gear, may I suggest that you take it. And that's it for the meat of the video. I'm going off script now. This video took so long to make, man. Let's just say that the timing here was pretty poor. Some stuff has been going on with work and my personal life. Not to mention the sheer amount of content in this video. I mean, you can see the video length, right? 30 plus minutes. I severely underestimated how long this video would take to make. But you guys know me. I'm not one to leave any stone unturned. I wanted to get this video out in the best way I could. If I can help it, I'd rather not rush any of my videos. Now, things have settled down. We're doing a little bit better here. I took my Japanese test just 2 weekends before, and I got a solid and very hard work for 8 out of 10. The new Madoka Magica movie was announced just the previous weekend, I believe. Your boy CRYO has been hyped beyond belief. I wouldn't shut up about it on Twitter. And as for the channel, I am aware that several comments have been left unanswered, and I'm sorry about that. I just needed to really focus on finishing this video because it was a daunting project, man. I'm gonna get to these comments as soon as I'm done with this video. Aside from all that, thank you guys for the 400 subscribers. You guys have no idea how happy I am. I'm currently under a blanket recording this last segment just to get this video out before Tuesday ends. And as I sit here sweating, may I just say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I hope the information in this video and in every other video, even if it's not informative, if it just made you laugh or made you smile, I can consider that a job well done. Yeah, I think that will do it for me. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you in the next video. Like, comment, subscribe, and share this video with your fellow noob invader that wants to get into this accursed game we call Dark Souls 3. Alright, that's it for me. I'll see you next time.